Welcome to the Biz Gone Social Podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social Podcast, and I'm so glad to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and social media marketing and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I am so stoked today to have Justin Esgar with me. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so great. I have not talked to an IT person or someone who specializes in Macs. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your company and what you do.
Yes, thanks so much, Lorraine. So I am Justin Esgar. I'm the CEO of the Virtual Consulting Group. We're made up of a couple different divisions. Virtual Computers is our biggest one. We're outsourced IT support for businesses that have Apple products. So we take care of everything. End user support, phones, printers, networks, as long as they have Mac products in the office. That's our primary business. From there, also, we have a training arm called My Mac Mentor, which is more B2C, right? We want to help your mom not, you don't want to look up her nostrils anymore when she's FaceTiming. That's what we're here for. We're teaching people how to use Zoom, how to use FaceTime, how to use their computer, things like that. Again, in the Apple world. And then we have Gravity, which is our hardware arm, and that is our Apple authorized service provider. So we can actually fix hardware under warranty. Instead of going to the Apple store and having to wait online, you can ship it to our warehouse down in Columbia, and we'll take care of it there. We have a couple of other things that are related to it. We have some software that we do for IT professionals. We host a conference for other Apple consultants. I have a funny t-shirt store. I wrote a kid's book. All the fun stuff that us entrepreneurs love to get out creatively, other smaller avenues. So it's great when I get a $1.52 from Amazon because someone bought a t-shirt of mine that I designed that says "You're muted" across it or something like that.
So how did you get started? Like what drove you to want to help people that have, Mac products, Apple products, I should say?
Yeah. So I've always been a born entrepreneur. I mean, when I was in 5th grade, my friend would make these like origami paper pencil holders, and I would buy them off of him for a nickel, and I'd sold them to the kid on the other side of me for a quarter. I mean, like when I was in high school, I was a member of the Future Business Leaders of America. And I was always the number one candy seller, doing that like, hey, you want to buy some Sour Patch Kids? You want to buy some Nerds? You want to buy some chocolate? Like, always the number one. So being an entrepreneur has always been in my blood. And I've always loved technology and always gravitated over to Apple products, right? So when I was 5 years old, I went to Florida with my mom, and I came back, and my dad, I guess, had spent $15,000 on a Apple IIc. There was like this thing sitting on our living room. That's what they cost back then. And I was just like enamored by it. Coding. I would get those magazines that the centerfold wasn't a pretty person in it. It was like lines of code for you to type, and like something magical would happen on the screen. So I was just in love with this whole concept. And so I always liked computers. I always liked Macs. That's what we had at school. In 7th grade, there's a really good story that I borrowed the Microsoft Word 15 diskette set to install Microsoft Word on my home computer. And the first time I did it, it said, "Hey, what's your name?" So I wrote Justin Esgar. And then we installed it on the computers at school. And for the next 12 years, anytime you launch Microsoft Word, it said register to Justin Esgar. Like, it was like these kinds of things, right? So I did that. I was working computers, doing things. Once I got to college, I was doing a lot more web design kind of stuff. And I got out of college in probably one of the worst recessions in history of recent, and couldn't find a job. And so I started temping. And while I was temping, I went away with a friend of mine, and my sister, who lived in Manhattan at the time, needed help with her Mac. She got the business card of the guy who came out to her apartment to fix it. I called that company, and I was like, "Hey, you looking for anyone?" And they're like, "Well, we're firing someone tomorrow. Why don't you come in on Monday?" And I was like, "That sounds great," not realizing like the toxicity of whatever that sentence is. Went in, worked for this guy for a couple of years. Over time, he sold the business to another company. Things didn't go great. I finally was out. And so I started my own company in 2008 and have just been running with it ever since. I don't know. I'm just, the whole ecosystem, and you know how Apple people are, and I'm sure, everyone's like, oh, I love my iPhone and my Apple Watch and like whatever. It's like, this goes deeper than that, right? Like, I have an entire museum of Apple products over there, as a good IT person would. Like, everything, every girlfriend I've ever had, up to my wife's family, like, I've converted them all to Mac. Like, it's just like, you just do this thing when you're in that ecosystem.
I know. I've done the same thing. It's like my whole family has iPhones, and I tell you, it's like, I know I can buy, a regular laptop, for real cheap, but it's like, I always get a Mac.
Yeah. They just work. It's funny because I like to say they just work. And at the same time, if they just worked, I wouldn't have a job. But you have to understand, like, being in IT has less to do with the computer and more to do with the user who's using the computer. A good amount, 80% of the problems, it's something the user is doing wrong or is expecting something else to happen when they're doing, whatever it is they're doing. The other 20%, electronics are fickle.
Yeah, tell me about it. I had a really bad computer day yesterday. Let's just put it that way.
I did also. I think it was the weather.
They said it. I guess somebody had written 4 days ago that Mercury retrograde is happening or something. And
okay, so I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay, it wasn't in retrograde. I looked it up, and we monitor this. I know it sounds hokey. We actually have in our company-wide Slack, when Mercury goes in or out of retrograde, it alerts everyone in our main general Slack channel, because, like, we know. We get the whole Mercury thing.
So is this a myth? Is this whole Mercury retrograde, like a myth, or is it actually true?
I think it's one of those situations where so many people believe it becomes true on its own, right? It's like a Mandela effect kind of thing, right? It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. The whole Mercury retrograde, Mercury's closer or it's further away from Earth, and the magnetic poles are different, and because of that, it's causing interference with electronics and computers. That's not how computers work, like, at all. But, not to downplay people who believe in it, but there's, people who believe in astrology or tarot cards. It's one of those things where if it's manifest enough, it's going to become true in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I actually agree with you that it's usually always the user. I have a friend who's notorious for really not even taking care of her computer, but literally just anything that can go wrong when she sends something, does something or whatever goes wrong. And it's like, she always blames the computer, but it really isn't the computer. But here's a question for you is, like, I went to an in-person networking group on Wednesday, and about 5 people in that group, it was one of those chamber groups where like 5 people do the same thing, in each category. And there were at least 5 business cards that I got that were, certified Mac IT people or whatever.
Really?
What separates you from companies like that?
So I don't know, because obviously I don't know the people you're talking to. So one thing is that we are an Apple authorized consultant. What I mean by that is, if you have a problem with your Mac and you call Apple, they'll send you to a website called consultants.apple.com. And if you type in your zip code, you're going to find someone who has been vetted by the Apple Consultants program at Apple, meaning we've passed certain certifications, we are up to date with our insurance, we have our licenses in place, we have these certain things that we have to do with Apple in order to be in that program in the first place, and therefore we are what Apple deems to be an authorized consultant. They don't call it an authorized consultant, they just call it a consultant. There's authorizes for other divisions of Apple, but that puts us in what's called the Apple Consultants Network. So if you go on your computer right now and you go to consultants.apple.com and you type in 10120, for example, which is the zip code of our main office in New York, you'll see virtual computers. 65201, virtual computers in Columbia, Missouri. 50320, I think, is Des Moines, Iowa. And you'll also from there see all of the reviews we've gotten from our clients. Virtual Computers has, at the time of this recording, 105 reviews, all 5-star. There's one 1-star review. And to be honest, I will 100% own that. That was completely my fault. I tried out a new product on a new client. Never do that. But that's how you can tell the difference, right? Our team is fully certified in many aspects, not only Apple related products, like we have certifications in security, single sign-on. We have a PDF signature certification from SignEasy. We've done mobile device management. We have networking certifications. You can see all of those when you go look at our profile on consultants.apple.com. So if you're looking for a true, honest Apple consultant, you have to get one from that list, because anyone could be an quote unquote Apple consultant. But in order to be, you have to be a member of the Apple Consultants Network to be like in tandem with what Apple wants.
Now, do you you work remotely for most of your clients, or do you do a lot of in-person work too?
So obviously pre-COVID, we did a lot of in-person work. A lot of being an IT person is being on site and helping, not only because one, we're able to like diagnose the problem faster, but two, you get to the crux of what the person's real problem is, which is typically, I broke up with my boyfriend. The idea of being on site was actually a very important thing for us, but COVID really, and we told clients we can work remotely, and they were like, no, come on site. But COVID and the whole pandemic actually gave the IT world a leg up, and it proved to clients we don't need to come on site, which allowed us to do one thing that we've never been able to do before as consultants, which is grow our business beyond our region. So my main company, Virtual Computers, started and primarily is based in New York City. Yes, now we have an office in Des Moines, Iowa. We have an office in Columbia. We have an office in Miami, Florida. But I can remotely help anyone anywhere in the world. So now we're listed as a remote support specialist as well, being able to help anyone in the United States. So you're no longer locked to someone who's in your area. Now, granted, you're not going to get that on-site support, right? I'm not flying to Boise, Idaho to help you for an hour with your computer. But if we have a big project to do or things need to be done, we make do. We get on a plane, we have to go. But a lot of this stuff can be done remotely. And the remote tools that we've used, massive steep incline in their usability, flexibility, and growth in the last 3 years. I mean, just look at Zoom, for example, right? Zoom was at version like 2.8 at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're up to like 15.13.6. They literally came out with 3 versions in the last 4 days. Like, these things are helping. And I think at this point now, companies are okay with that, right? Because it used to be if you didn't come on site, the company would question your value. Now, I don't think you as an IT professional not being on site is in line with how much value you're providing the customer. Now you have to provide the customer in value in a different way. So that's kind of helped. I would love to be able to go back on site more. We do it, pretty infrequently, especially in New York City right now. But probably and hopefully in the next year or so, between 2023, 2024, we'll start getting on site a lot more. Also, a lot of people get rid of their offices, so there's nowhere to go.
True. I mean, it's like, I remember I was leasing space before COVID, and then I just stopped. It made no sense.
Yeah.
First of all, the building was closed for a while, and so I work from home now, and it makes sense for me, and it works. And yeah, to be able, the convenience of having someone that can remote, if you're having a major problem on your computer and being able for somebody to be able to remote in, that's amazing in itself. And it saves time, and I'm sure it saves money in a sense too.
Right. Because, time is money, downtime is more money. We had a design firm that it was based in New York City, a longtime client of ours. And we had, at the time, we built them servers. We put Synology devices in their back room, and everyone was able to connect all their data. And then when the pandemic started and they all went home, yes, they could VPN in, they could connect to the office and connect and get to their data, but it was slow and whatever. We never built for that. So like new tools and new cloud file sharing collaboration tools came about. And we moved everybody to those cloud file sharing, and which once they were moved to those tools, they realized, hey, we definitely don't need the office anymore. Forget it. We're going to save money on rent and hire another designer or put money into where we need to put money or whatever it is. So like we've now set clients up to not have to need to go back into an office. No office, no on-site support makes it a lot easier for us.
That's awesome. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit because, you know, a lot of people out there, you know, it's always the glamour of being in business for yourself. What do you enjoy most about owning your own business?
Absolutely nothing. Don't own a business. It's horrible. Don't do it. For me, one, not having a boss. I can't answer to anyone like ever. I was a horrible employee. I mean, granted, the last time I was employed, I was 28 years old. A big difference, but still, like, I can't have someone telling me what to do. So there's probably that. I think, look, the truth of being an entrepreneur is not what you see on Instagram. It's not, you know, throwing money around and fast cars and big fancy homes. Like that's a rarity, right? Like people are like, I'm going to be the next Elon or Jeff Bezos or, you know, one of the sharks on Shark Tank. Like that's a rarity. Like a true entrepreneur has grit. A true entrepreneur has dirt under their fingers. A true entrepreneur understands there are going to be good days and there's probably going to be a lot of, if I may curse, shitty days. Like there are days, true story, there are days where at the end of the day, I'm so wiped out that like I pass out on my couch or I'm crying because something bad happened or like whatever. Like those things happen. So you have to have that grit and determination. If you can get past that, be an entrepreneur because it allows you freedom in some respects, depending on the type of clients you work with. It allows you the ability to like do things as you need to do. Like you're working from home now permanently or like, hey, you don't have to work from home. You can work from Hawaii if you want to, right? Like, there's all these different abilities that you can do, and there's a lot more. And freedom is time back, and time back is more money in your pocket. So you can make more money that way as well. There's no limits. You can charge what you need to charge. Obviously, you can make a lot more money being an entrepreneur than being a 9-to-5 worker. But so there's plenty of good, but you have to be able to handle the bad with it and just stop thinking that like, oh, if I find a way to rent 15 Airbnbs, I'll make $3 million. Like that's not going to work, man.
Absolutely. You know, we do always talk about the glamour of owning our own business and everybody's like, wow, you own your own business. That's amazing. What would you say is your biggest challenge in running a business?
Running the business.
Like, don't let it run you, right?
Yeah. Right. Like there's one horse, there's one cart, like who's who here. The thing with running the business is one, the buck stops with you, right? At the end of the day, if you have employees and they screw up, you screwed up. At the end of the day, if a client is unhappy, your fault. If at the end of the day you didn't finish your to-do list, your fault. Like this is what I'm talking about, that grit and determination. Like you're going to get a lot of this thrown at you, and you have to be able to defend, deflect, and grow from it, right? This is all mindset at this point now. Gratitude mindset, abundance mindset, you know, these practices, which going back to what we talked about earlier about, you know, Mercury being in retrograde, being a thought thing, you know, if you believe in it, it's the same thing here. If you believe in abundance and you believe in gratitude, it's going to work for you. But if you're getting garbage thrown at you all the time, sometimes it's like hard to do that. I understand. I'm in the same boat. I have 12 employees. One of them needs, you know, has a problem with something. I got to deal with it. I got a client who's got a problem. I got to deal with it. At the same time, I have to like remember to give my kids a bath and feed my family and like take my dogs for a walk. So like, it's a lot. You have to be emotionally capable of doing this, which, to be honest, I've met a lot of people in my life. Humans aren't emotionally capable of doing this. So we need to like offset that with other things. And we do, right? Networking, talking, therapy, whatever it's going to do. Like, you have to be able to like find the ways to break through those problems and not let them crush you. Otherwise, you can never do this job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. And you can't really say that, I'm sorry, but the dog ate your work, you know, like we were able to say when we were in school, right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. The dog, I'm sorry, your server went down. The dog ate through the Ethernet cable. Like, that's not going to fly.
No, it's not, you know, and it's like, and I don't have a twin sister, so I definitely can't blame her, So, there's a lot of people that are listening to this today that are toying with the idea of, starting their own business or going into their own business. What would be one piece of advice that you could give them that would, spur them on and help them out?
All right, I'm gonna give two pieces of advice here because it depends on where these people are in their journey, right? So if you have a 9 to 5 and you have to pay bills like rent and food, start a side hustle first and build up from that, right? That's a key move here. Like, don't give up your 9 to 5. You need a job, you need cash in your pocket, but at night spend 2 to 3 hours like doing stuff online or selling products or building your customer list. When I was starting out, I was working for someone, but I was also side hustling a couple of gigs on the side until I had enough gigs to quit my job. And then I made that my full-time job. And I worked those gigs into the time frame that I can do it, right? So don't bite the hand that feeds you, and don't put yourself in that predicament. Now, if you're living at home and you don't have rent and you're working a 9 to 5, I'm not saying quit your 9 to 5. Like, you don't know, everyone's situation is different, but like, if you have that much of a safety net, talk it over with the people who you're living with and like make sure they're cool with it, and then go try something, right? Obviously, if you have the freedom of not having a 9 to 5, you have more time to do things and you think you can succeed better. That may or may not be true, because maybe your 9 to 5 is you're bagging groceries, but you're really good at selling. And in those 2 to 3 hours at night, you crush selling. Like, the amount of time you spend during the day on this thing is not proportional to how successful you're going to be. So if you don't have the ability to do it as a side hustle until you build it up. If you can, dive in. There's plenty of resources online. There's plenty of people who you can come talk to. I'm sure that like you'll take a phone call from somebody who needs help. I've helped out so many people in the Apple IT world that are starting out as consultants. How do I get this? How do I do that? What should I do here? Who should I go for insurance? How do I get this vendor? Whatever. Like, build that up and just keep, hitting the pavement. You need tenacity. If you don't have the tenacity to get started, you're not going to have the tenacity to finish.
Yeah, great advice. Well, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. And if somebody needs to get a hold of you, because I know a lot of people will, because you always have trouble with your Macs. I know that out there. It hit. But anyways, how would they get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm the only Justin Esgar on LinkedIn. And then if you want to find our IT consulting, it's virtuacomputers.com, VIRTUA computers with an S.com. That's our IT. And then from there, you can find everything else.
That's awesome. Again, thank you. And then everybody out there, thank you for listening. And I'll see you next week. Take care now.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram at BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.